Is the market going to crash? That's the question.
Hello, Kim Mathis here today. We have a special guest, Kristin Reagan with Union Home Mortgage. She's here today to talk about and to clear up some of the confusion, the topics that we are hearing a lot about, which is interest rates and should I buy now? Should I wait? What if the market crashes? Oh my gosh. So we are going to talk about all of those things today and see if we can clear up some things. So Kristin, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with you and your team. We get to serve the community and you're always on top of it, and I appreciate that. So I'm glad that I could be here with you.
Well, thank you again. So interest rates, let's start with that. What in the world?
Yeah, so we are definitely seeing spikes in rates. We are seeing the fastest spikes that we've seen since, I think it was 1984, if I remember correctly. What does that mean for our buyers, right? Because that's where the question is. So rates are still low, so I don't want to scare anybody, because when you look at historical rate history, anything really 7.5 and below is still a great mortgage rate when you're talking about a 30-year rate. So if anybody was paying attention yesterday, the Feds did meet and they did say that they anticipate continuing to raise the next 6 sessions. So we are going to see that continuing to happen, and we want to make sure that we are being as proactive as we can to help people get the best rates that they can.
So although rates are a big part, of course, it's still, I was shocked just recently when we had a client and the rate had increased, but then when you told us what the actual payment was going to be, it was still great.
Yeah, for
sure. So, I mean, should we look maybe at the payment and not get so, crazy or upset over the rates? Because the payments are still good, right?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, housing is our second basic need, right? So everybody has to have housing. And so ultimately what you're doing is, can I afford this, right? It's not really so much about the rate that you're paying back. It's, can I afford to live here? Can I afford to raise my family here? Can I buy now? Okay, so when we look at that, that's the way we're planning, because people are going to always buy and sell. There's always going to be a need for that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, because if everybody's concerned about the market crashing, right?
Yes.
Is the market going to crash? That's the question. We've got buyers that are waiting because they think that the market is going to crash. The truth is, nobody has that crystal ball. If we did, somebody would be a true trillionaire if they had that ball. But nobody knows what's going to happen. But if you look at it, if you had a home today and you thought it was $50,000 overpriced, okay, you're looking to buy and you think, I think that's $50,000 over what the true market value is. And the rate is where it is today, and let's just say rates are in the 4% range. If the market does crash, but we already know Feds are increasing those rates, if they're at least even just 2% higher, so even in the 6%, which we've already said is still a good 30-year rate, right?
Yeah.
But the house decreased that $50,000 because the market crashed. That house went down $50,000. You know your payment would be the exact same?
Really?
It's like $3 difference on your payment.
Wow.
Right? So the affordability is the same either way. So I hear people say, I'm going to wait for it until it's more affordable. But what does that mean? Because just because you feel like the price dropped, if the rate went up, is your affordability changed?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So you're saying even if the rate was 6% and the market dropped $50,000, your payment's going to be the same.
The house is going to look the exact same. It's the exact same property. It's just that you paid $50,000 less for it, but now your interest rate's 2% higher, so your payment's the exact same. And I always ask the question, I'm like, what is going to cause the housing market to drop? When somebody asks me, should I wait? What do you think is going to cause the housing market to drop?
Yeah.
Because people are so related to what happened in 9, 8, 10 that they think that's going to happen again, but it's a totally different story this time. The housing crisis, if you want to call it that, I don't call it that. I think I'm enjoying what's happening, seeing the growth and the increase. I think we're seeing natural inflation.
Yes. Well, and the other thing too, you and I were both in the business in 8, 9, 10, in business in 5, 6, 7. We saw, and what we saw then is not what we see now.
For sure. It's a new rodeo, for sure.
We have more buyers than we do inventory. Back then, the market was great, so builders and okay, let's sell, but they overbuilt for the amount of people that were in the market to buy. This time it's totally not that case. As a matter of fact, we've got more buyers and we can't build them fast enough.
That's 100% correct. I mean, even if the builders wanted to build and keep up with the pace, the infrastructure down at the Guilford County can't handle it. Like, they can't handle getting permits out fast enough or getting the roadways built fast enough to be able to handle the buyers that we truly have. And what's created that influx of buyers, we know COVID played a role in that because people learned they could work from home instead of having to work where they lived, so they were able to move. We have a lot of people coming from international. We have a lot of foreign investors that have bought here, tightening up the market. We have investors that are tightening it up. There's more cash in this market than I've ever seen, which makes it more stable, which makes the market more stable.
Yes, I have seen that for sure, more cash buyers. So interest rates. So even if they go up a little bit, your payment is still very affordable.
That 100%. I mean, your payment difference on a slight interest rate spike is not going to be that great. Now, over time, if it continues to go up, you're going to feel more of the effects on that. So it is better if you can catch at a lower rate, obviously, right? Even if the price is a little bit higher, that if you can catch during that time. Yes. Because everybody's concerned about prices dropping. I think more people are concerned about prices dropping. So that's how we're addressing that.
Yes, but do you think that back when the market fell, we didn't see a whole lot of increase since 10, 9, 10?
Oh, for sure.
So it's kind of like we're catching up.
Like, I feel like that's why I say a natural inflation. Like, we are catching up to what we should have been while we were in that depressed state.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, anything else you're seeing out there that we should be talking about so our listeners, viewers can say, oh yeah, I was wondering about that. I know interest rates and is the market going to crash? Those are two things that we keep hearing. But anything else?
I mean, basically, I always say it's a good time to buy, right? It's still a good time to buy. If you think about what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you had bought a home, where would you be sitting at now? Like, they're not building, like, we can't build enough. There's no more land. Like, we have to start creating new paths for people to continue to be able to buy. So I think as long as you have the funds and you can afford the monthly payment, then buy. And selling. Let's talk about selling for a minute, right? Because we have sellers that say, I would love to sell, but I don't know where I'm going to go. And so I have these conversations with sellers often, and the last thing I'd want anybody to ever be is house poor. Like, nobody wants that. That's the worst thing that anybody could ever do. You got to plan and you got to be comfortable with your payment. But is this a good time if you think you're going to want to buy up because your family is growing? You're going to plan on having kids. You got, your kids are getting into a different stage, and you think, you know what? In the next 5 years, I want to buy a house that's worth $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 more, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, again, those rates going up. Is now maybe the time? I just did a mortgage plan session with another gentleman, and he's currently paying daycare for the next 2 years, okay? $550 price point. And I said, what can we do to make you feel comfortable with a payment after you're done paying daycare? Right? Because that daycare payment is only going to be there for 2 more years, right. And then he's going to want a different home, right? His kids are going to start to get older. They won't have to be so close to their bedrooms. What can we do now in today's current mortgage rate environment to help you progress that? And so we did a little bit of strategizing, and we helped him to feel comfortable with a $650,000 house. So then now he can go ahead and buy that house that he would have bought and get it under a good rate. So if you have a home to sell, not only can you take advantage of getting top dollar for it. But you can take advantage of the lower market rates so that you can afford more.
That's really good. So I love that you actually sit down with people and strategize and come up with a plan with them.
For sure, absolutely. Any good mortgage lender is going to sit down and have those conversations with their client to make sure, because at the end of the day, again, none of us want to see what happened again back in the day, right?
That's
None of us
sure.
want to see that. But we have to, and while none of us have a crystal ball, we have to kind of think and plan ahead. And people's lives are forever changing, right? Kids go to college, kids come out of daycare, people get married, people get divorced. So things are always evolving and always changing, and we're planning as best as we can for those events and for your housing.
Yeah,
so that you can capitalize on that, right? It's still one of the greatest assets that you can own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's. And then the other thing too, we've not touched on this, is rents. Oh my gosh, rents are up 25%, whereas housing is up 18 to 20%.
I just got cold chills, like literally.
I mean,
the rent is.
It's crazy out there. So while we're sitting there worried about interest rates, good grief. I mean, the rent, you can't rent a place for less than $1,400, $1,600, $1,800. I mean, this is what I'm hearing. And I mean, just off the top of your head, how much can you buy with a $1,400 a month payment?
Oh Lord, I should have done math on that one before I came to the table. There's a lot that plays a role in that, right? Because what type of loan are you getting? How much money are you putting down? Do you have mortgage insurance or not? Right. So you're going to be looking at a gap. $1,400, $200,000, maybe roughly. It would be
there's too many variables.
There's so many variables that would have to be taken into account. But when we talk about now being the time to buy and the rent, I think about parents. Like I'm a parent of a child, right? And you're a parent of a child, and I think, gosh, can my kids afford rent? And what's going to happen when they're ready to buy? And for me personally, I'm like, I need to invest in properties for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if parents are thinking about that, but again, if I think about my parents, if they had been able to buy a home 20 years ago for me to be able to start out with, right, instead of having to pay rent, and how much that home would be worth now, and you see what's happening in the market and how this continues to fluctuate, and how housing always stands value-wise, whether it goes down or whether it comes up, it always ultimately stands the test of time, right? Yeah. It always, asset-wise. So if you want to help your child potentially not have to pay these high rents, then certainly, taking some of your cash, because people are, what are you doing with your cash? The American dollar, that's a whole nother story in itself, but investing into something that has, value long-term,
right,
while rates are still low.
Yeah, that's a very good point too. Taking that cash and buying investment property or buying for your child. Let them, if they're going to pay rent, rent it from us,
right? And
we have a little bit of control over that,
and
not this
right.
25% increase that we've been seeing.
That's 100% right. Because these are fixed rates that we're doing in today's market. Like, we're still doing fixed rates, so that 30-year principal interest payment is never going to change. Whereas we've seen over a 30-year time period, because I've been in the business 24 years now, I think, but we've seen how much rates have increased, right?
Yeah.
But that principal and interest payment is always consistently the same, no matter what happens with inflation.
Yeah, very good point. So if you get in now at 4%, 5%, even 6%, you got that rate.
That's right.
For as long as you have that house.
That's right. So if rates go up to 18% when your child's ready to buy, then you still have a home that's at 4% or 6% or whatever that number, wherever you land at. And there's always the possibility of potentially refinancing or selling to buy something else down the road.
Yeah. Well, I know as an agent, talking about the seller, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? There are we have come up with so many strategic ways.
Yes.
We could talk about this for another 30 minutes on, like the ribbon program.
For sure.
We could talk about, living in temporary housing or an Airbnb, or better yet, staying where you are and doing a rent back from the buyer.
Yeah, which has become more popular now,
Yeah.
right? Because sellers know they need to, but there's so many ways to strategize, which is, again, why you want to work with professionals that know the area, that are local, that can represent you and represent your best interests and help you really be able to create a path for you and your family to be able to continue to take advantage of the homeownership process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Kristin, thank you so much for coming today. This has been really good, y'all. I love working with Kristin because of one thing she said. She will sit down and go over a plan based on you and your needs. So that's why we work so well together. If it's going to take 3 months to come up to get the plan ready, 6 months, whatever that is, or if you're ready tomorrow, Kristin and I work really well together to help get you from point A to point B to that new house, to sell, to buy, whatever that is, investment property. So anyway, if you have any further questions, give me a call, give Kristin a call. We'll have our information here at the end of the show.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Have an awesome day.